You remember when the first Harry Potter films came out, and I was sort of slightly sniffy about them, and I complained that they had talked about getting directors in like Terry Gilliam, and then they'd ended up with Chris Columbus. And I've had this discussion with Jason Isaacs of a number of that I've misjudged Chris Columbus, and obviously I do think that for me the Harry Potter movies really kicked into gear, around about Prisoner of Azkaban. That was when it really started. And by the end of it, I was in love with them, same as everybody else was, because also similar to your experience, I read all the books to two children. So once you've gone through everything and you realise how much the films are tied up with the books. The interesting thing with this is, firstly, in terms of its visuals, it is much closer to being that thing that I wanted the original Harry Potter films to be, because, you talked about that 1920s, roaring 20s Prohibition era. You said it had a kind of Gotham-y feel to it. It's been described elsewhere as a sort of steampunk feel. There is a darkness lurking in that. And actually, visually, that stuff is very rich and very rewarding. I do like the environment that you're in. It was interesting to hear him say that they did build so much of it. And Watford, admittedly.
Who'd have known?
Who'd have known? But that physical, obviously there's an awful lot of CGI, but that physicality does definitely pay dividends. It's great when you have a series like this, you can basically have your pick of the bunch in terms of your actors. And Eddie Redmayne, or Eddie Redmaybe as I shall call him forever, he is really likable as the Magi zoologist. It's interesting in your conversation there was that thing about Buster Keaton, a little bit of Jacques Tati. I have to say that for me, with the coat and the trousers and the forelock of hair that was kind of always sort of falling forward, I thought he was a dead ringer for Matt Smith's Doctor Who. But I don't find that bad thing, because Matt Smith's Doctor Who was very, very, he was hands everywhere and legs everywhere, and he's a slightly ungainly creature. So I like that. Dan Folger, however one pronounces it, as the Muggle, or Nomad, as we have to refer to it in America. I
think it's a J.
It makes that role really charming and really sympathetic. Catherine Waterston, you talked about there, who's so brilliant in Inherent Vice as Tina. But actually, funnily enough, it's the creepier characters who really steal the show. Not just, Samantha Morton is brilliant. She brings real weight to that, to the character of the lead second Salem, Mary Lou. And it's a fairly small, fairly compact role. But Samantha Morton is one of those people that, Samantha Morton can literally walk onto a scene and everything, I've never seen Samantha Morton deliver a bad performance. And although it's a fairly small, compact performance, she's great. Fantastic also to have Ezra Miller as Creedence Barebone. Every time I see Ezra Miller in different film, he never looks the same twice.
He looks particularly different in this one.
He does, because in this he kind of looks like Mr. Spock's creepy cousin. But he's got that intensity that he's always brought to his roles, whether it's this or whether. He has a real brooding intensity. But again, it's not, I recognise who that is. That's why. I was watching it for about 10 minutes before I realised that was who he was. I actually made a note, isn't that Kevin in the film? And there's, there is a real edginess to the kind of that strange cadre of children who are a little bit like kind of, Village of the Damned meets The Crucible. So that darkness that's going, and then Colin Farrell with that, the untrustworthy haircut, and
always,
or the untrustworthy haircut, the untrustworthy suit. Everything about him says, wicked but manicured and stylish. So I really, really enjoyed the performances. There was a moment at the very beginning when you get the first sort of visual effects of the first Fantastic Beast coming out of the suitcase, and I thought, wow, look at that thing running around. That is really brilliant VFX work. Later on, when it goes a little bit Narnia, I'm kind of less impressed by. There is a whole section in which we almost sort of we're in a whole other world, basically. And that stuff affects me less, in exactly the same way that when the action really takes off and it all goes a little bit X-Men, a little bit Avengers, a little bit, at the beginning there's this suggestion that it's this, evil wind with eyes is a really sort of interesting idea. But there are sections later on when it just feels like it has to build up to something big, which affect me a lot less, because actually all the things that work for me are the little details, the way in which, Eddie Redmayne talking about the way in which his character stands, which is, that is fascinating. Oh yeah, of course you're doing that because there is something about the stance, but it's also something about the stance that says, I'm always, you pick this up, he's always looking away, he's never quite looking anyone in the eye, except when he's with the beast, and then he is, and then suddenly it's direct eye contact. I like the fact that, David Yates is a very, very safe pair of hands. I don't mean that in a bad way, incidentally. I mean that in a good way, that you get that thing that in the first 10 minutes you do, okay, fine, we're in control.
He knows
Somebody knows what he's doing.
Did he do the last three?
Yeah, he did. But does it count as two because one of them was whatever? Yeah, but absolutely. I like the fact that it seemed to me that there were very deliberate references to Citizen Kane. I thought, and I mean, I may be completely imagining this, but although David Yates is a cine literate guy, so I thought there was a definite nod to Q, the winged serpent, which is always good in my book. And there were little things in it, like there's a moment that reminded me of Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy. I thought that was just playfully aside, but it seemed to be, when it was doing its movie references, it was doing them in a way which was rooted in a kind of history. So I think that although there are certain longers when it starts to feel a little bit like a thin story is being padded out by some sort of spectacular stuff, the spectacular stuff is always good fun, but the stuff that works for me is the character stuff. It's the Samantha Mortons, it's the Ezra Millers, it's the never looking somebody in the eye, and it is the general Gilliam-esque steampunky feel of the environment with which one imagines that in future films they can have an awful lot of fun.